Okay, so let's do one more graph together. We're going to do this number 3, the sine function, and then I'm going to let you guys do numbers this sine function, this cosine function on your own, and this sine function down here. Okay, so we're going to do this one more together, and then you've got 2 on your own. Okay, so here we go. Let's do this together. So we're going to do this again exactly as we just did, following the same steps. So here we go. A equals B equals C equals D equals. So we fill this all in. A equals 3, B equals 2, C equals pi over 2, D equals 0. That's step number 1. Step number 2 is our period. What is our period? Equals 2 pi over B, which equals B being 2. So that's 2 pi over 2. Our 2's cancel, leaving us with a period of pi. Now we're going to do our x interval. X interval is the period pi over 4. Let's box that in. Now we're going to do a phase shift. Phase shift equals C over B, which equals pi over 2 over 2. Now, how are we going to calculate that? Well, that's going to be, this is the division of a fraction. So this is going to be pi over 2 multiplied by the reciprocal of this fraction, 1 over 2, which equals pi over, just multiply straight across, pi over 4. So the phase shift is pi over 4. Okay, now we're going to do the vertical shift. The vertical shift is y equals 0, y equals d, y equals d. So that's y equals 0. Now we want to do we know our amplitude. Amplitude equals the absolute value of A, which equals 3. Now we want to do our table. X, y. We have a phase shift, so we're going to, sorry about that. So we're going to set up our 2 equations. Bx, 2x minus pi over 2 equals 0, and 2x minus pi over 2 equals 2 pi. So how are we going to solve this? This is going to be 2x equals pi over 2. X equals pi over 2 divided by 2, which is pi over 2 times 1 over the reciprocal of 2, which is 1/2. So, which equals pi times 1 and 2 times over 4. So this is x1. So I take x1 and I put it into the graph. Pi over 4. Now I have to solve for x to the 5th, this x sub 5. So I add pi over 2 to both sides, pi over 2. These pi over 2's cancel. So now I'm going to move over here a little bit. I have 2x equals 2 pi plus pi over 2. Now I have denominators that I need to get to be the same. So this needs to be a 2. 1 times 2 is 2. 2 pi times 2 is 4 pi. I need to, now that I have common denominators, I add the numerators. 4 pi and pi is 5 pi over 2. So now I have 2x is 5 pi over 2. Therefore, I divide, if I have 2x equals 5 pi over 2, I divide both sides by 2. The 2's cross out, and x equals 5 pi over 2 times the reciprocal of 2, which is 1/2, which equals 5 pi over 4. This is x sub 5. So x sub 5 is 5 pi over 4. 5 pi over 4. So now I have to figure out what's in the middle of my table. So the best way to do that, let me block this off, so now I've figured out x sub 1 and x sub 5. The best way to do that is to take the first x sub 1, so that's pi over 4, and add to it my interval. What is my interval? My interval is x over 4. Excuse me, pi over 4. So I add my interval, pi over 4. This is my interval. What is pi over 4 plus pi over 4? Well, that would be 2 pi over 4. So this is going to be x sub 2. So I just put 2, I'm going to leave it here as 2 pi over 4, but I can reduce that, right? And that's going to be pi over 2. But here I'm going to leave it like this, and I'm going to add another interval to it, pi over 4. That's my interval. I'm going to do this 3 times, right? And then 2 pi plus pi equals 3 pi over 4, and this is x sub 3. So I've got x sub 3. I'm going to put it in my table, and it is 3 pi over 4. Okay, I have x sub 3. How am I going to get x sub 4? I'm going to add the interval pi over 4, adding an interval. Notice that I've got intervals. I'm denoting my intervals by circling them. I'm going to do it 3 times. 3 pi plus pi equals, I'm going to put it up here, 4 pi, 3 pi and pi, 4 pi over 4. This is my 4th interval. The 4's cancel, leaving me with just pi. So that's my x sub 4, and I'm going to put it in my table as pi. Now I am done with my table in terms of x values. Now I need to solve for my y values. So let's do that. I have a positive sign function, so I'm going to just say, what is a positive sign function? Interval max, interval min, interval. Now I have no d. Therefore, my y values are only dependent on the amplitude. So I don't have to do a d function here because my d value is 0, y equals 0. I don't have to add to it. So I can just put in my amplitude, which is 3. So my interval is going to be 0, 0, 0. My maximum is going to be 3. My minimum is going to be -3. So I have my table, therefore I can graph it. So I do have a shift, but I don't have a vertical shift. So I'm just going to set up my graph accordingly. So 0, we have pi over 4, we have pi over 2, 3 pi over 4 pi, and 5 pi over 4. I want you to notice that between our two intervals, between pi over 4 and 5 pi over 4, there is a distance of pi. That's our period. So now we have to graph the table. So we're just going to graph the points. Pi over 4, 0. Pi over 2, 3. Let's give me a, whoops. 1, 2, 3. -1, -2, -3. So pi over 2, 3. 0, -3, 0. So there I've graphed my points. Now I'm going to graph up to the top, down to my intercept, down to my minimum, up to my intercept. And let me just, remember that this graph is going to go on indefinitely, right? So I could keep graphing. And notice what's happened here. I have shifted, my shift was a positive pi over 4 shift. So I have shifted to the right pi over 4. I have an amplitude of 3, and I have a period, the period between pi over 4 and 5 pi is actually a distance, a total of pi distance. So just realize it is a positive sine curve. It's a pi, it's a one curve occurs in pi distance and an amplitude of 3. Okay, there we go. Now what I would like you to do is, we have 2 blank graphs. Please go ahead and do them on your own and bring them into class tomorrow. All right, I'm going to leave that there, and you can look at it as you graph your own graphs. There you go.